Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carolyn Curry de Castillo. I'm with Unison TV here at Unison at Kirby Center, and today we'll be talking with some folks from BioStrong. And joining us today are Michael Lindy, who is a co-owner and as well as an osteopath. We're learning a little bit more about that degree. We can explain a little bit more about that. And then also Jacob Pilardi, who is a kinesiology grad and a strength coach with BioStrong that will be able to explain a little bit more about osteogenic loading, which is what happens at BioStrong. Welcome, you guys,
Thanks
and
for
thanks for
having
being
us.
here.
Yeah, thanks
Can
for
you
having us.
explain a little bit, just because we touched on that, Michael, what is an osteopath?
Well, an osteopath is a manual practitioner, someone who uses their hands to help heal the body, just like a chiropractor would, a massage therapist would, physiotherapist would, an osteopath would. And it kind of encompasses all those umbrellas of those other modalities into one practice. So it's a very holistic, head to toe um, practice that deals with anything from, you know, back pains to migraines to stomach pains to um, anything else that just general tightness, something that you feel from head to toe, we can deal with.
So, like chiropractor plus?
Chiropractor plus.
All right, we'll go with that. And how did you first get involved with BioStrong?
While I was finishing my osteopath degree, I was finishing off my thesis, and my partner, business partner, co-owner, kind of landed this opportunity on my lap, which he thought of me specifically since I've got the background um, and I understand bones and bone health. And this was not an opportunity that is in Canada as of yet. So as it landed on my lap, I thought sounds like a great opportunity. So we decided to get into business together and pioneer this idea up in Canada, in Calgary, and to start osteogenic loading to help increase bone density for we started thinking the aging population, but now we've come to learn it's anyone. It's anyone.
All right, well, let's get right into this and find out what is osteogenic loading, because I'm sure that's a new term to a lot of people. Who wants to jump in and explain a little bit about that?
Osteogenic loading is osteo bone means bone. Genic is building, creating, so bone building, and loading is kind of like a weight bearing force load on your body. So you take a heavy load and you're trying to lift or push and onto your body and you feel it. It's like, oh, that's heavy. That type of weight, that type of force tells your nervous system, tells your brain to increase the bone density in the body over time after you do that type of load um, consistently. So it's just a big fancy word for saying the more weight you lift, the heavier and stronger your bones get.
So are you actually increasing the density of the bones?
Yeah, that's how it works as we like from birth till we age. The more we lift, the more we pull and climb and fall and jump and bounce and all those forces actually are what mold our bone tissue. And it's literally squeezing bone, compressing bone that does it. That tells our brain, oh, we don't want to crumble under pressure. We need to be able to withstand this amount of load if we're going to live on this planet in under this gravity. So the more you do, the stronger your bones get. So you find that throughout childhood, children that are in um, activities that are more load bearing, gymnasts, for example, certain things like that, they do increase their bone. They have more bone density as they go through puberty into their 20s than someone who is maybe sedentary or not loading their bones as much. So that's how it happens naturally in the world.
And does the bone density loss happen naturally too?
It happens naturally as we age. So we peak around, they say average age 30 is when we peak at our height of our life, and then after that, it starts to just naturally we start to naturally lose. And that's especially if we aren't maintaining any activities and we're being sedentary. You give um, yeah, you start to lose your bone density. So that's why it's important to stay active into your later years. But also there's things that we can't help. Like there's menopause, which the hormone changes in your body help to reduce our bone density over time. Certain things like that. There might be medications you're taking. Some people might have thyroid issues. Some people might have stomach gut issues, or they are celiacs or things like that that might help also to leach the calcium out of our bones or disrupt our um, osteogenic process. So then we lose bone density over time anyways. So yeah, it's things to think about.
And I said bone density, but do we lose bone mass too? And what is the difference there?
I'd say yes, bone density, bone mass, similar thing, same
Mhm.
thing. It's just the qual there's the density, the amount of bone mineral in your inside of your bone. I guess you've got the trabecular bone, the inner workings of the bone, how dense that is. The more you have, the more dense it is, the heavier it is, the more minerals you have in it.
Mhm.
And the least you do, the more porous. That's it, porous.
Ah, yes.
It starts to look more porous inside of your bone. You lose the mass as you lose bone density. So you can build some of that back and you can build the quality of the bone tissue, which adds strength and pliability so you don't fracture from doing something like falling onto your
Yeah, yeah.
hands or something like that.
When you say you can increase strength too, the strength of the bone, or when I think of strength, I think of how much weight I can lift at the gym kind of thing. What strength are you talking about?
Well, they're kind of one and the same. When you are lifting weights at the gym, you are using your muscles, your
Mhm.
musculoskeletal, but your muscles are all attached to bone. So you are, they're all one and the same. If you are contracting your bone or contracting your muscles, they're attached to your bone. And so that force is always applied to your bone. So the more you lift, the more your bone feels it, the stronger it gets. So the stronger you increase your muscle mass, the it will follow into your bone density as well.
Oh, so when I'm doing weights at the gym, I'm not just increasing muscle, I'm
Yep, you're helping bone.
increasing my bone
Yep,
as well.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, let's explain a little bit about and I think you mentioned it's called the bone density machine that you have there at BioStrong. What
Biodensity.
biodensity?
Yep.
What did I say? Yeah, biodensity. What does it do for a person?
You want to take this one, Jake?
Yeah, so the biodensity machine is essentially just a force measuring device that tells somebody how much force they're exerting. And so when we think about building bone, it's building bone and building muscle have some similarities and some differences. So for both of them, we need stimulus and building blocks. So for muscle, we go to the gym, we work our muscles through repetition with load, and then we need protein, amino acids, and rest. And for our bone, what we need is to hit that range of osteogenic loading. And so that is roughly 4 to 5 times multiples of our body weight in force that we need to apply on our musculoskeletal system. And so most people can't safely do that in the gym where they're loading up 4 times their body weight in force on something and then doing an exercise. And so that's where these machines come in really handy. Is it's a safe way. You're always one-on-one with a coach, and we put you in kind of the optimal. We do 4 different exercises there. So the biodensity machine has the ability to do a chest press, a leg press, a core pull, and a vertical lift. And with those, we put you in kind of the optimal position. So for something like our leg press, we're going to get you so that you can push as hard as possible with as much force, but safely so that you're not risking knee hyperextension or damage on the joints. And because there's not really range of motion associated with it, we're also not putting extra strain on our joints. And so, especially as we age, one of the things that doesn't necessarily always go hand in hand with osteoporosis, but is very common is arthritis, osteoarthritis, having issues with your joints. And so these machines allow people to safely exert the forces required to hit osteogenic loading while putting the least amount of negative stress on the body.
Would I get the same thing from, say, running? Because I know that running, they talk about you get a lot of body weight that comes down every time you hit a stride. Is that sort of the same thing?
Sort of similar in concept, yeah. So running is a good example of impact, and so impact is something that puts more force on our bones. And so running is a great example because if you were to run with terrible form, where you didn't use any of your joints and all of it was just going straight into your bones would get the most benefit from it, but your joints would probably hate you. Whereas if we run, there's even the difference between heel striking and landing on the balls of your feet when you run. And that is a good example of heel striking puts more impact on our bones, but also can put more strain on things like our ankles or our knees over time. Whereas if we use more of our joints to absorb that force, it's better for our muscles and softer on our joints, but technically we get less impact on our bones. And so the average running will get you maybe two, sometimes like 2.5 times multiples of our body weight in force. So it is better than nothing. So for instance, if you were somebody that just walked and you never really had that stride of your like the running gait, and then you switch to running, you're now going to put more stimulus on your bones. So you might maintain your bone density a little bit better, but chances are it still won't be quite enough stimulus to actually grow your bones. And that's where we see we can hit in the gym, we can hit 3 times multiples of our body weight. Depending on how strong we are, we can go more than that. But the average person with most of their activities won't hit enough of a stimulus to trigger that osteogenic loading.
This is a bit of an aside, but then if we're looking just at bone health, you're better off doing running than walking as an exercise.
Yes, if we're just considering bone health, then yeah, absolutely. And then if we're considering that, you're better off to have something like a weighted vest or something when you go, because then again, we're putting a little bit more load on our body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you touched on it a little bit before, but tell me what the advantages are of using the biodensity machine as opposed to going and doing the weights at the gym.
Yeah, so I mean they're not mutually exclusive in how they work. They're you're with the biodensity machines. We talk about kind of three main increases, and you already touched on two of them was building muscle strength, building bone density, and then the third one we get through our program is balance, and we will talk a little bit more about where those benefits come from when we talk about the whole of the program. But from the main benefit of the biodensity machines versus the gym is the safety and the amount of strain on the body. So again, it's not that people can't increase their bone density by going to the gym, but the amount of weight that we have to lift is hard to do safely, especially as we age, because again, if we're going through range of motion, now we're putting more strain on our joints. And if if we're loading up with 4 times multiples of our body weight and anything goes wrong, now you're at real risk. And so the benefit of doing it with the biodensity machines, and again at BioStrong, is you're always one-on-one with the coach, and we're always watching your movement patterns, making sure everything is done properly and safely, but also pushing you to the limits that your body's comfortable with. So we do free orientations there, and when we come in, people will have, if they're dealing with injuries, they might not push that hard, but otherwise we'll test them to maybe 75% of their comfortable limit. And so we always start people off easy, but then as they continue, both they start to realize, and their cognitive functionality is starting to realize how strong and how capable their body is, and how much force they are able to put on it. And so that's where they really see those increases and start to hit the high force numbers that really work to stimulate that osteogenic loading and to send those osteoblasts into the bones. So it's really the benefit of the biodensity machines is the safety of it. Probably 95% of our users are using it for a bone density building purpose, but the other 5%, or give or take, are people that do actively go to the gym, and they're using it as a safe way of testing a 1 rep max. Because again, in a gym, if you're testing your 1 rep max, you're now pushing your body to the limit in an area that's not very forgiving, versus when you come to something like this, it is just a really safe way to exert max force and see how strong you are while
And
doing
you're not
it.
and you're not going to put your back out.
Exactly. Yeah.
How much do you have to do it? How many times do you have to do this to see some results?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, when we compare our program that we do to traditional exercise, it seems like it's not enough on paper, because traditional exercise, you might go to the gym 3, 4 times, maybe even more than that a week. Whereas for us, what we're doing is it's one 20-minute session a week. And so, again, very manageable amount of time, whether you're somebody that is very active and goes to the gym 4 days a week and wants to add something in, or we get a lot of people that never really took to the gym and didn't like strength
Mhm.
training, that kind of thing. And this provides an opportunity for them to do that. And so what we see is in that 20 minutes, we do roughly a 5-minute warm up on a vibration plate. And that's where the bulk of our balance benefits come from, which nobody really thinks as your bone density gets worse that you need to focus on balance. But it is kind of the unsung hero, because if your balance is better and you're falling less, then you're just less likely to have a fracture. And so it is something that is really cool to hear the clients talk about how they're noticing their balance getting better.
Mhm.
But so yeah, 5-minute warm up on the vibration plate, roughly 10 minutes on the machine. And so how it works is for each exercise, we do one push somewhere between, on average, 5 to 10 seconds. We do have options to go a little bit longer if you were an endurance athlete that wanted to test how much you're doing, because like Mike said, it started with just being focused on giving these as tools to people that were already in osteoporosis or that were really subject to it, and now it's kind of just a unique tool for anybody that wants to experience it. And so, but the average force push, I would say, is rough between that 5 to 10 seconds, and we just do one of each. So it, again, on paper doesn't really sound like it's a lot, but how osteogenic loading works is, if we can load our body in any capacity, it kind of sends the signal. It starts by going to our central nervous system, and then it
Mhm.
sends the signal out to all the osteoblasts. So all the bone should grow at kind of roughly the same rate and everything, and it sends that stimulus across the body. So we don't have to hit osteogenic loading on all of the exercise, but we do have a number of clients that are doing that for kind of all four of them. So, but no matter what, if we're only hitting it, let's say the leg press is the kind of the breadwinner for most people, where they can generate the most force. And so even if that's the only one that they're hitting osteogenic loading in, all of the other forces that they're doing for the other exercises, the vertical lift, the core pull, and the chest press,
Mhm.
are all directly stimulating. Mike touched on this a little bit, but we have kind of quantity of bone uh,
Mhm.
and quality. So the quality is how rigid and dense is that spongy bone matrix, that microarchitecture of the bone. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the scanner, and how we can analyze that and learn more about how strong our bone is separate from the density. But all of the direct impacts we're putting on those exercises are all going to help stimulate that spongy bone matrix to densify for each particular bone as well.
Do you recommend that people do legs, arms, and the pulls, like the whole gamut, or does it depend on the individual?
So for most cases, we put everybody through all of the exercises. If
Mhm.
somebody has any injuries or anything like that, we can try to modify them around it. But if there's any injuries or something that is preventing somebody from doing it, then in that case, the benefits might not outweigh the cons of doing that exercise. So, like, there are a few people that have an ongoing, heel injury or something like that,
Mhm.
where maybe they have to skip one, or we've got some people that struggle with something with their shoulder, and so maybe they're only going to 50% strength when they do their chest press, but that's okay because they can still hit well over. We got some people that are doing over 10 times multiples of their body weight on something like the leg press. And so it's, yeah, you'd be surprised how much force you'd be able to generate there. So it is pretty interesting when we compare that. And again, if we compare it to traditional exercise,
Mhm.
you're like, well, I could never move that much weight in the gym, but
Yeah.
we're using that much force to move the weight through gravity, and the range of motion is what makes it tough. Whereas if we can do it in this way in a controlled, systematic environment, it's amazing how much force we can generate.
Can you describe to someone who might be curious, like what it feels like? Does it feel like a workout?
It does, yeah. It's one of my favorite things about the program. There is it's such a nice, concise package because in that 20 minutes, it's not like you're going in and you don't really feel like you accomplished anything. It is
Mhm.
does feel like a very neatly packaged workout where the warm up we do on the vibration plate, we're getting more muscle activation. So if somebody comes in relatively good shape and feeling pretty good, we can put them through a decent number of reps and they're getting more muscle activation because of that vibration as well. And on top of the other multitude of health benefits, some of which is like increased blood circulation, drainage of our lymphatic system. So the vibration plates by themselves have a number of health benefits and have actually started to be included in a lot of chiro or physio clinics because of just how good they are for our body as a whole. But again, it really nicely packages up that warm up to get our body primed and ready to go. And then when we get on the machines, even though it is just one 5 to 10 second hold for each one, we're doing max force exertion for that time. So if you were to not, and we've got it's got a nice display where it shows how much force you're doing, how much time is left, your previous, your personal best, all those kind of attributes. So it is a really nice display. But if you were to not pay attention to that and just push, and let's say we had you for the minimum, the 5 seconds, especially for something like the core pull, you'd be like, that was at least 10. I don't know what you're talking about. So it does feel like it is harder, but at the same time, it's not like you're necessarily working up a sweat. So most of the clients that come in there will leave, not feeling like they got super sweaty or worked up a
Yeah.
lot, but they will feel the muscle activation. They will feel the because it's not what we're creating there is intensity of stimulus. We're not doing a lot of volume of stimulus or anything like that, which again, compared to traditional exercise, is kind of the big difference.
Mm.
In a gym, often we're going and we're doing multiple reps and multiple sets of multiple exercises. And so that's good for kind of doing lower intensity across the body. But when the goal is high intensity on just the whole body, we don't need to do it the same way. And so people definitely still feel that stimulus. But then the last 5 minutes of the 20-minute session is a nice cool down on our kind of recovery beds that we've got that is great for creating space in the hips and the spine and also giving us that neuromuscular cool down where it kind of takes us out of that fight or flight response and
Mm.
sends us back into the rest of the day as well evenly. So
It almost sounds like it's doing the exercise for you. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's as hard as, going and grinding away at those weights. Is that a
It
very
really isn't.
simplistic way to put it?
well, it's not doing it for you. Like you
Oh,
still have to generate the force again because it's not like the machine is just putting it on you. So you still have to generate it, but it is like I would say probably a lot easier task to manage than for somebody who if they, especially if they don't want to go to the gym regularly, going and doing one 10-second leg press is a lot easier for somebody to wrap their head around than going and doing, you know, 30 squats at a gym. And again,
mhm.
we're more if you're not there with a professional who's telling you, "Oh, you're actually not hip hinging enough or you're putting too much strain on your knees," you could potentially be doing more damage. And so that is the real benefit is it feels like it's less than traditional workout, but you're still accomplishing all of those goals.
And do you work up like your heart rate too, or not, like you would
Yeah,
at the gym?
yeah. So we do actually. I have a couple clients that will track, on their activity trackers, their Garmin's, whatever kind of fitness thing they've got, and they'll track this just like a regular workout, and they'll see the heart rate spikes, especially during those, 5 to 10 seconds. So it's not like we're not getting anything because again, it is kind of like max force exertion for that time period. So it is almost like we're doing a one rep max safely each time that we're there. And so you do see the heart rate spikes. It's going to increase the like everything in the blood sugars and that. So we're seeing all those same kind of benefits that we get from traditional exercise in a lot more concise of a package. Now the thing is it is a little bit different. If you were somebody that like, if we got a young 30-year-old male who's like, I just want to put on muscle, this is not going to do the same thing as traditional weightlifting, because if you want to put on just size onto your body, you need to train your body differently. But if in terms of just building strength, this is a relatively efficient way of doing it. So it might not, like, if I tried to build strength as much as I could at BioStrong and I competed against a power lifter who's doing it in the gym, I might not be able to compete. But if we both did a leg press on the machine, we might be similar values. So there is still strength there, and it's still accomplishing those things. It's just slightly different.
That one I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around. That it's not the same. Like well, you won't become an Arnold Schwarzenegger by doing this. You won't look like that by doing this, as opposed to if you went every day to the gym and did the weights.
Well,
Yeah,
and
this
but
doesn't
again,
have.
part of that comes with how you're training, right? Because you
Yeah,
can train for hypertrophy, you can train for strength, you can train for
yeah,
endurance. And so to actually build mass requires a lot more than just working out in a gym. We have to have the caloric surplus, all that kind of
right.
thing. And so it's not that by coming to BioStrong, you'll only gain strength and you won't gain any muscle size. We do have some clients who have noticed that their arms or shoulders or something like that have seen increases in size. But again, there's so many factors specific to that that
Mm.
it's not like everyone will see that.
They would have to be having the additional diet, the additional other
Exactly.
factors to go
Yeah.
along with it to really see that. Would you see us changing your tone?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Because what we're doing is we're taking, because for most people, they're not necessarily changing their diet, they're not necessarily
Hmm.
changing anything. So by putting this kind of extreme force on the muscles, what you're doing is it's almost kind of like the bone. You're almost densifying the muscle, where you're taking muscle that's the same size and now it needs to be stronger. And so what it's doing is it's making those fibers tighter, more efficient, so that they can generate more force without being bigger or anything like that.
I'd like to go back to one thing that you had mentioned, just a little clarity on that. How does it help your balance?
Yeah, great question. So, how it works is because we're doing the warm up on the vibration plate, and the vibrations are just constantly moving while we're doing exercises. So, we'll change up the warm up for everybody. It's very tailored towards the client. First thing I ask every client when they come in is, how is our body feeling? And then we'll tailor the warm up and essentially the whole session towards that. But let's say our kind of average warm up, which is, a few squats, push ups, lunges, and kind of like a hip hinge. And so when we're doing those exercises on there, all of those little stabilizing muscles have to work harder because they're getting challenged the whole time. So if I do 10 bodyweight squats just on flat ground, there's no additional stimulus challenging my body. So it starts to get used to the movement, and it then, the more used to it it gets, the easier it feels that it is. Whereas when it's on a vibrating surface and it's kind of constantly challenging it, then that forces those little stabilizing muscles to work a little bit harder and get stronger. And then by doing different movement patterns through there, there's a handle on our vibration plate, so we always have a support system if we want. But especially as they get comfortable with it, a lot of the clients will stop using that. So even doing something like a lunge now, where even just doing a lunge on flat ground is hard enough to balance, but you add the vibrations in there as well, and now you're really challenging both the muscles and the like neurological side of that as well.
Wow, fascinating. I didn't know
Yeah.
how that all worked together there. Another thing we had talked about before we started was the scanner, the Light scanner. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that all plays into this.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to talk a bit about that one?
Yeah, so if you were to go to the doctor here in Alberta through AHS, you will maybe around the age 50, 55, they might encourage you go get a bone density scan. It would be a DEXA scan, which is an X-ray, and it takes an X-ray of your spine and of your hip and give you a score that we'll talk about that kind of takes you gives you a bone density kind of score, what your minerals look like, and how you are compared to an average 30-year-old. If however, we have one in house at BioStrong that's an ultrasound. So it's There's no radiation like you would get through the DEXA. And so you can get it more often because I think the
Mhm.
doctors would only allow you to get it maybe every 2 years, 3 years.
Mhm.
But we like to keep track of how things are going at BioStrong with your bone density. So we increase the amount of times you get to have a scan, maybe one every 6 months or once per year. So it's an ultrasound. It measures the same thing, the bone mineral density, gives you a T score, which basically measures your bone density to an average 30-year-old. Gives you a Z score, which measures your bone density to your age cohort. But it also measures the quality of the bone that Jacob was alluding to. And so it might give you a fragility score, which tells you the kind of where the strength that you're at the moment, and maybe what your risk for an osteoporotic fracture might be in the next five years.
Does it identify you as having osteoporosis? Is that
So the way that that chart looks, the T score is measured in these numbers. Anything that's at a -1 and up is considered normal. Healthy, strong bone that you normally don't have anything to worry about um, for strength and for bone mineral density. Anything at -1 to a -2.5 score that you will see as a T score is considered osteopenia, which is just, yeah, okay, low bone density. Time to monitor a few things. Maybe have a look at your lifestyle, have a look at your diet. Are we getting enough magnesium and calcium and vitamin D and K and potassium, all these things? Just have a look with nutrition and your exercise, and maybe we can help to maintain it or even improve your bone density from there, but it's caution. And then anything at -2.5 and lower is considered osteoporosis, which is now we are in the zone where we could be more cautious of having a fracture, let's say from something that shouldn't necessarily break when you fall. If you just do a trip fall and you shouldn't have broken anything, that could be a cause for a fracture if you have osteoporosis, and something we should look at.
so with this scanner, you is basically you can check it out anytime you want
Yeah, you
there.
can come in anytime. This is for
Mhm.
you don't need a doctor's referral
Mhm.
to come see us. Um, we definitely recommend at least 20 years, or I think it's 20 years or older. But people are coming in their 30s and 40s to get a bone density scan that is close to their peak, so they're getting a baseline while they're at their healthiest, so they could kind of see where they are. And then as they age, they get a bigger picture of what's happening because they had a snapshot of what they looked like when they were their healthiest. We have
Mhm.
people coming, um, yeah, from their doctor with their DEXA scores, but they want to just get a second opinion and see
Mhm.
how it goes. And if they have a plan to work on it, this is a way they can keep track of their bone mineral density a lot throughout the year or a couple of years without having to wait 3 years for another DEXA scan. And the other thing is that our scanner does incorporate a body composition um, a picture as well. So you get to see what your body fat percentage looks like, your lean body mass, that those kinds of things, and what kind of calories maybe you should be eating to maintain your body weight, or you can make a plan to cut or add calories if you need to add weight to yourself. So there's a little more information than you would get at a with a DEXA scan.
Could a person use the scans to track how well the biodensity machine is working for them?
That's what we include in our program.
Mhm.
As we do a monthly membership, we like to.
Mhm.
You could come and just pay per session just to come, but we
Mhm.
like to, be with you for the whole entire duration and see how objectively how are you doing. So we
Mhm.
know that bone does take the longest in the body to go through its remodeling phase. So
Mhm.
I think it's around maybe like 8 months, give or take, on average, that you might have the full remodeling of bone happening. So, because it takes that long, we like to say give it a good year to check in with your bones and see how it's doing. But along the way, our biodensity machines are keeping you posted on how your strength is building. So, you get to see week after week, and we always email you your results week after week, your how your progress is, how much stronger you're getting at each exercise. And then we get to check in every 6 months, maybe if you want, or every year, especially for your bone density. So we do our echo scans, and we like to do a baseline before we start and check in a year and see how we're doing, and then build a picture from there, and then continue on if we need to, or if you're happy with your results, then you're happy. So yeah, that's how.
Yeah, just to put a little bit more information on that, because Mike talked about how it gives us, and how you mentioned, does it allow you to track results? And we don't necessarily, no one is required to do the scan to see their results or anything. But one of the things that we have seen with DEXA is it is subject to human error. So the results are always interpreted by a technician. And if you go back for a second one, they ideally want you on the same machine with the same person to try to reduce that. With our machine, there is no human error associated with it. The machine does all of the analysis. So we know the results are a little bit more accurate, and we get a little bit more information from it. That fragility score is really valuable because we've seen a lot of people come in that have been active their whole lives but maybe haven't done enough loading, or have had, where genetics have really made them subject to bone loss, and to have see a big decrease in their bone density. But because they've continued to challenge their bones, their fragility scores tell us that their bones actually aren't weak. They've lost density, and so they are more subject to a fracture than if they had more material. But because the material there is still strong and we can accurately measure that, we know that they're in a safe place to be able to exert the forces required to safely build their bone density back up. Whereas with something like a DEXA, we don't necessarily get that information, and we've
Mhm.
seen the results be quite drastically different than ours. We've had people come in, even men in their mid to late 30s, that got a diagnosis of extremely osteoporosis or osteoporotic with a T score of like a -3 plus, and on their spine, but like a -2 or something in their hip. And then when we do the scan, the spine and hip are both in and around like a -1.8 or something like that. So we've seen it have quite different results than the DEXA. So it's nice for people to know that they're comparing apples to apples. So by getting the echo scan at the beginning and then the echo scan at the end, you're comparing two things that are fair to be compared, and that they're not subject to change as much. So we get a little bit more information from that. And we've seen people come in for just the body composition side of things. We've seen a lot more younger people come in for both, but we've even had people come in just for body comp and then find out, oh, actually, you are in osteopenia. You should be looking at your nutrition or anything like that, because, like Mike said, it's not like osteopenia is a severe problem, but it is on our scan, it color codes it, where healthy bone is green, osteopenia is yellow, and osteoporosis is red. And that's a great way to think of it, kind of like a warning system, where
Mhm.
osteopenia is like, okay, there is a warning sign here. It doesn't necessarily drastically need to be addressed, but if you don't address it, it will just turn into a problem, because bone loss is something that's not anything new. We just didn't really have great ways of dealing with it. And for the longest time, all we had was these medications, and then that DEXA was just the way of prescribing for that. And so this gives a little bit more information, and again, is more of like an apples to apples comparison. So
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. And a person could just come in for the scanner.
absolutely. Yeah, we do have a number of clients that will come in, again, just for, whether they're in their 20s, they're just coming in for body composition, or we've got people that are in their, 40s to 50s, right? Or like women who are just about to go in, like they're premenopause, but they're getting closer to, and they want to know their bone status before going through that period of life. we get people that are, in their 60s, 70s plus that are just looking for more information about the bones. I do personally believe that this machine will replace the DEX at some point. I just think it's because AHS invested so heavily in it, that will take a little bit of time. But from pretty much every metric, it is better. It's non-invasive, more information, more accurate. So that is my belief that it will be the future of that scans. In some parts of Europe, it already has kind of replaced the DEXA. So yeah,
And you said that's unique to
yeah,
Alberta, or?
yeah. So there is and Mike briefly talked about this as well, that where there's a mobile guy, I think, that is based out of somewhere in BC that will go around and do the scans, because I know there were a few people that came to us that had Echolite scans, that were actually from this mobile service, but I don't know exactly how frequently he would come or anything like that, but we are the only scanner that is readily available in Alberta. So yeah.
Hmm. Um, and then with uh the frequency, how many times did you recommend a person go for this, and how many follow-ups should they get?
Kind of depends on what they're looking for, but if it's somebody who's interested in body composition changes and they're doing like a 3 month program, they can do a scan in 3 months to gauge some of the results of that. From a bone standpoint, bone takes a little bit longer, and so Mike talked a little bit about the bone cycle. The average person's bone cycle is closer to a year, so 6 months is pretty much the shortest window that we'll see changes in bone. And then the average person is going to be closer to a year. Some people is even a little bit longer than that. So it is very dependent on the individual, but in general, I would say the average that we recommend from a bone standpoint is about a year,
So a year at once a week
for the sessions. Yeah.
for the sessions. That's what you need to do, once a week sessions for a period of a year to see improvement.
Yeah. And again,
Okay.
it's different for everybody, because if you are somebody who has issues with nutrient absorption or
Mm.
anything like that, like, it is essentially the best tool for building backbone density. And so what that looks like depends on the person. Like I said, we've seen pretty remarkable results where people have gone from osteoporosis into osteopenia, or osteopenia all the way back into healthy bone in as little as 6 months. But we've also seen people that after a year have just managed to stabilize everything. And for some people, that might be best case scenario, because if their rate of decline is a lot more severe, that might just be the best that they can hope for. And so everybody, the goal is to try to build that bone back to a healthy point, and where it's no longer an issue at all. But again, it is very individual, like case specific. So yeah.
And guys said it's been operating now for 3.5 years
Yeah, Mike,
in
is that
Calgary.
Yeah, we might, or maybe 4 years. I think we're 4 years in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what evidence do you have you collected then in terms of the success?
Yeah, we do have uh, quite a lot of clients that have had actually success. I like to say it like people come in with their results from their DEXA scan is typically how we first see a lot of people. If they're coming for bone specific reasons. And so they might even be keeping up with their bone density and they've had multiple DEXA scans and you get to see their rate of decline is maybe a little alarming for what's natural and the 10%, 15%, something like 8%, like something it's per year, it's going down. So if we like to say if we take the train and kind of slow it down and turn that into like it's only losing bone density maybe 2 or 3% a year, that's a win, especially in a year's time after your whole like your life has been, after a chunk of time it's been going down that much. That's a win. If we're only slowing up the reducing of bone mineral density, that's a good thing. If maybe give it another year and we maintain where we're at, even better win. And so maintenance is great. And like Jacob alluded to earlier with the Echolite, we get to see maybe your bone mineral density is maintained, but your fragility score is improving. And so the quality of what we have is actually improving. And another thing that we haven't talked about yet, but anecdotally, a person just might feel better. They might feel stronger. We see that with tons of our clients. They are just able to carry their groceries in the house and chop wood in the fall, or go on hikes longer or walks longer. There's a balance is better, improved. We hear all these stories and it's amazing. Oh, I had one grandmother say she went to the playground with her granddaughter and thought she saw her hanging on the monkey bars and thought, I haven't done that since I was a kid, and tried it. And she's like, check this out. I'm on the monkey bars. It's amazing. So yeah, those are some of the stories that I think are the reason why we do what we do. And then we've also seen the biggest bonus if anybody improves their bone density, which we have seen a lot of as well. So if anybody is really still decreasing in bone density after doing our program, it just shows us that maybe there's something we're missing with their overall health. And so well, let's take a look, let's go to a doctor and see what else could be maybe missing, because osteogenic loading isn't going to decrease your bone density just by its nature. So
It could be other factors
it
at
could be
play
other
then, like you said,
factors.
with the absorption or whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you offer any kind of guarantee?
No, we don't offer guarantee
Hmm.
because, like Jacob had alluded to,
Hmm.
everyone is so specifically
Hmm.
different. And so, yeah, we do not
Hmm.
guarantee because there's so many different lifestyle
Hmm.
factors and things. And there's actually quite a lot of things that could leach calcium out of bones, and we're just like, oh, we're fighting against a lot of factors. So we're not guaranteeing anything, but we are saying if we can get to know you and your specific case, we can maybe come up with the most realistic expectation of what outcome we might see with you specifically. So yeah.
Yeah, and we can't, like Mike said, we can't guarantee bone results because it is very individualized. But one of the things that we do pretty much say that will happen for everybody is they will experience either an increase in strength, or like Mike said, where it's kind of more anecdotal, and you get the. We don't have any clients that have done it and not felt any different. They're either feeling stronger in their day to day life. We see their numbers go up on the report. So everyone that does it will see an improvement, at least in some like strength capacity or in some metrics. It's just we can't guarantee that they'll see an increase in bone.
Is there anything that I haven't touched on that I might be missing about BioStrong?
Good question.
No, I think that's pretty much everything, unless you can think of anything.
Cost. Can you touch
Oh,
on that,
there you
what a
go.
session is?
Well, before that, I'll go to anyone coming for just a scan.
Hmm.
If you were interested in taking a look at your bone density or your body composition, it's about 139.99 before tax, so
Hmm.
140 basically, and that could be anybody can come and see that. And then when you want to try the sessions, come check us out. Your first initial orientation is for free. We'll take you through the program. Takes about an hour. We'll go through your history. We'll try it out. We'll answer any questions you may have. So you get to feel how it is and see if it's right for you. And you understand all the things that Jacob was talking about, hey, maybe I didn't sweat it out here, but boy, do I feel different. My face is flushed. Like there's been some blood flow here. I feel like I did something today. It's way better to feel it, to understand how the program works, and then you'll know if it's right for you. And then when it comes to our memberships, the first thing is if you were just to come for a session, I believe it's 65 for just a session, but we like to, be with you and commit to ourselves. So if we just go for month to month um, membership, I believe that's 199.99. Yeah, 200 a month for just that. And then after that, we have plans that are less, that are, if you're with us for 6 months, I think you get $10 off. If you're with us for 12 months and you lock in for 12 months, you get another $20 off or something like that. And
Yeah,
then
we've got
there's
a few different
different
memberships based
memberships. Yeah.
on like flexibility. Some come with scans, some come with additional recovery sessions. So it's pretty much designed to be as flexible for, whatever works best for you. Like Mike said, most people to see any change in bone, they're going to need to commit to at least a year. And so that's where the kind of real discount comes from is if you
Yeah.
were to, and we do have clients that will just pay for individual sessions because maybe they can't make it as frequently, or we'll get people that will, even though they have done it for multiple years, they might be snowbirds. And so they take off for 6 months of the year. And so when they come back, they do a month to month or a 6 month or something like that. So the idea is to try to have it as flexible as possible for everybody. So, with even with something like the sessions, if you have to miss one, you give us a call, you don't lose that session, you just make it up as long as your membership is active. So the whole goal is we're giving you access to the tools. And so, like Mike said, it's always one-on-one, and we always want to be there with you each step of the way so that we can not just help you in the session, but help you outside of the session. I think one of the biggest things for value for clients is that they get access to the professionals. You get access to kinesiologists, you get access to osteopaths, and we'll help give you additional things to do. For a lot of people, it's not even bone specific. I have so many of my clients where I'll give them stretching routines because of their day-to-day life and where they're tight and little things that'll help them that way. So that's really kind of where the main value is. But like we said, it's flexible. So people can do the individual sessions. We have 10-pack passes of the sessions as well. So whatever works best for everybody.
Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating discussion, Michael and Jacob, about this. And personally, as a person who loves to run and wants to be able to keep on running into my 90s, I'm interviewing a marathoner coming up here at the Calgary Marathon, and she's late 80s. And I want to be able to do that, but I'm not a fan of going to the gym. I'd much rather be out running. So
Yeah,
this could be the thing.
Yeah.
absolutely. And
But
that's a number of
yeah.
our clients are that same way. So yeah.
Yeah. Running doesn't seem like work for some reason, but the gym, yeah, just that's a different thing. Okay.
Real quick, Carolyn, before you go off, I just noticed there's a
Yes.
question on the chat.
Oh, sorry, I should be
Mike, maybe
checking
you
that.
want to touch on this.
Yeah,
It's
let's check that. Are there medications, oral or injected, that are prescribed to patients with osteoporosis? Uh, would the machine work better with them?
yeah, Mike, do you want to touch base on this?
Um, are there medications and would the machine work better with them? Yeah, we've have clients with um, that are both not taking the medications and taking the medications, and so that is a good question. Actually, I don't know the metrics offhand. I know it is improving. I think maybe really well if you are taking your medications, um, whether it's injectable or via pill or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think they're benefiting well, and but we're seeing benefit with people not taking medications as well. I don't know what the numbers are at the moment. I'd have to go look through our.
There was a little bit of research that has been done comparing the osteogenic, like just osteogenic loading versus
That's
the
right. Yeah, there
medication
was other.
and that. And
Yeah,
so we've seen that osteogenic loading as a standalone, when we're not combining anything, appears to be the most efficient for building and growing bone density. But like Mike said, we do have a number of clients that are doing both. I will say that it does seem like the medication has started the injectables and the infusions. Those seem to be a little bit more reliable, a little bit of a better type of medication to take. We have a number of our clients came to us because they got given the initial prescription of, oh, you have osteoporosis, take this medication. And a lot of those pill are like the kind of older medications don't really sit well with a lot of people. Part of it is sometimes they can have side effects that are a little bit rough, whether it's you have low energy or just feel weak or any of those things. But a number of our clients came to us because they didn't want to take the medications. And so this has been an option for people to outside of that, where they can say to their doctor, okay, I want to try this first, because we are starting to see that where, in older generations, people just said, oh, well, my doctor told me to take this, so I'm going to take it.
Exactly.
And now we're seeing people that are saying, well, hold on, I'm more cautious of what I put in my body, and I've done the reading on these and I don't like them. Some of those medications, and even some doctors won't even mention this ahead of time, but you once you start taking it, you have to take it for the rest of your life. And so there are some options where maybe a combination would be the most effective for an individual or anything like that. But as a standalone metric, osteogenic loading appears to be one of the best solutions for it.
Thanks, guys. Oh, and there's one other question. Are
Oh,
you in
yes,
Calgary?
I
Address,
saw
phone
it.
number. And
Let me answer that
we're
question. I totally forgot to say where we're.
Avenida and by the hospital, right?
Yeah, we've got two locations currently in Calgary. One in southeast in Avenida Place, right off of McLeod Trail, and then the other northwest at the Foothills Professional Building. You can contact us at 403-978-9780 to see anyone in any location. Me, working as an osteopath, I work out of the Foothills location. I must mention though that we are going to move our southeast location sometime the end of the summer, beginning of fall to yeah, Ogden area. So just Glenmore East, where the Glenmore Inn
Hmm.
is in that neck of the woods. So we will be moving our southeast location. Um, and you can also find us at www.biostrong.ca.
And one more question. Are there insurance options? I know when I look at my insurance coverage, sometimes various places I've worked, I'm covered for osteopath work. Are
Yeah,
you
for
guys fall
osteopath, you
into
can
that?
see me. Yeah, so to see me specifically as an osteopath, you can use osteopath benefits or massage therapy benefits. But for the BioStrong program sessions, it is very rare that anybody has kinesiology benefits as
Mm.
part of their plan. We do allow that, but it's very rare to see that. So unless you have a very like well-rounded health spending account or a wellness account, um, then no, I think you'd have to pay out of pocket. We are trying to see if we could get
Mhm.
the I don't know, the board to look at kinesiology a little closely and use that more. But right now, it would just be kinesiology or a comprehensive health spending account.
Yeah.
Okay, that clears that up too. But if I want to see you specifically as an osteopath,
Osteopath,
that
yeah,
would be covered.
yes,
Okay, it depending on your insurance, of course.
yes,
Yeah, wonderful. Well, a fantastic session again. Thank you very
yeah.
much, and we'll have this up on our YouTube channel very shortly.